A good evening. So, are those seven deadly sins so very deadly? Today I'm going to talk about morality. So, here we go. In a closed society where everybody's guilty, the only crime is getting caught. In a world of thieves, the only final sin is stupidity. Hunter S. Thompson. So, I'm going to talk about morality, but I want to challenge you to consider these vices we call the seven deadly sins differently. I am not an expert on metaphysics or anything like that, although I do like to look at that stuff a lot. But I do recognize the concept of the positive energies and the negative energies, the way we just present ourselves, the way we handle everything. I just believe that the seven sins and seven virtues, as you would call them, are mediums of morality that we feed our energy into. So, let's get started. I'm going to start off with sloth. Our first thought here is laziness, inaction, apathy almost. This is the negative aspect we consider when speaking of sloth. But what if sloth can be used for good? How? Well, how do you accomplish good by doing nothing? Well, we exist in a heavily proactive, reactive reality. We assume with the perceived urgency of existing and how we exist that action is necessary to work hard and constantly, tirelessly, and build the life you want to have and want others to have. However, did you consider that possibly we are so busy we haven't stopped to think, we haven't stopped to rest, to re-energize? Sleep doesn't count. We all sleep. We all have to spend time that way. It's how our body works, our system works. But what about resting in our waking time? If I sat on a couch doing little of perceived value, you would call it laziness. But if I told you I was in deep thought, pick your topic. I was thinking about maybe a homework assignment I was running through, or a problem I was having with my relationship, or something like that, or anything that would actually be a constructive thought that you couldn't see. Although I was simply relaxed and sitting on a couch, maybe listening to some music and thinking. You would probably realize, you may not call it this, but, you would basically be realizing that I'm meditating on something in my own way. So there's a great example of how sloth can be used as a force of good, to stop and to think for a minute, and to, to center yourself, so on and so forth. That is not laziness. It may not be the best idea to do it all the time and all day, because obviously we cannot exist that way, but we're not stupid, okay? We're not going to actually be that slothful all day unless we are forced to be that slothful. Anyway, we're not forced, but given the incentive, such as, getting money for free. Anyway, gluttony. Number 2. Gluttony is the problem of over-service of the pleasures of consumption, of serving the body, if you will. Feeding, and, obesity, binge drinking, any kind of psychological addiction to consumption use in general. The real problem with gluttony is what we consume, not so much how much of it. For instance, corn products have no nutritional value and take a long time to fill us up, but we enjoy the texture and the taste, and we can alter that with spices and other flavor enhancements like butter or salt, etc. Now, what if you had an addiction to fruits? I have pigged out on grapes before. It's pretty good, and I didn't sit there and say, man, I wish I had a dozen Snicker bars right now. No, I would go through like a massive amount of grapes, or I'd have like maybe a couple of peaches, and it's delicious. You know, just sometimes we don't think that way, you know, because we don't have the flashy advertisements and the cool hip-hop artist that's selling it to us, or some stupid nonsense like that. But anyway, I've never heard of someone who has ever gotten sick from eating too much fruit. You know, no diabetes, no obesity, etc. So obviously, gluttony was serving the ones that eat healthy and think about what their bodies, and are thinking about what their bodies should be filled with. Pride. Pride is a vice that most people acknowledge in the positive and the negative. So this one should be easier for you. To be proud of your children, to be proud of your work, to be proud of your pets, or how you helped another life, etc. But pride is also a negative when you consider that we often can hold on to our pride and cherish it, and we will worship it. We cannot handle shame and failure because we allow the ego to mix with this pride. That is the danger of the ego. And that is where the negative energies of pride come from. When you just can't let go and learn to quit when you've lost, or learn to quit when it's not in the best interest of you. All right, lust. Lust, like pride, has an obvious duality for those who have abandoned traditional Western religious practices. You know, the practice of sexual repression from anybody who you are not married to, and that married person can only be one individual. And not that I'm going to go into a rant about polygamy, but I'm just making a point. Lust is a way to objectify a person, enslave their mind to their carnal urges, and ruin relationships and or public image. Lust is also our general libido function. It is natural and invigorating. It is part of the human experience. Sexual attraction is not a superficial characteristic. It is a standard we choose in our partners when we are honest with ourselves and judge beauty on our own merits, without some sort of social standards dictating it to us about appearances and sexual tastes. It helps us find the most compatible people to share our bodies with. This is why it transcends sexual orientation as well. Wrath. This is an obvious one for its negatives: rage, destruction, revenge, murder, etc. I'm going to give you a warning here and a spoiler about the movie 7. I'm going to give you 3 seconds to skip it or turn this off. 1, 2, 3. Wrath was the last sin in the movie 7, and part of the great plot twist at the end of the film. However, it is an absurdity to think we can live without getting angry, and to never act on that anger. The difference is self-control and understanding. Know that your anger is well placed, and the energy you give it is well used. Example, my favorite part of the gospel is when Jesus casts out the money changers in the temple. It was the one time in the accepted biblical texts, not including apocryphas and things that told us what Jesus was doing when he was 12 years old, and other stuff that the church should not be underplaying if not for the sake of its historic value. But anyway, besides the point, this isn't about religion. It's because morality is so far yet so close. But I'm just making this biblical point. It was the one time Jesus expressed wrath, the wrath of God. So if God and his Son can be wrathful, then so can we. Greed. To quote Gordon Gekko, greed is good. Greed is excuse me, tongue twister. Greed is a desire to control wealth, to own everything or as much as you can, And this is how you measure your success. Greed is often the most predictable character trait of the wealthiest people. But this is what we are missing about greed. What we think we can accomplish by greediness is an illusion. When the rich fail to see that, then they enter the realm of moral relativity to justify their ethics. But the truth is that the motivation to be rich is the motivation to solve a problem. That people are willing to exchange their resources for what you can provide for them, and to do it better than the competition. It is not wrong to be rich and powerful if you earned it and did not break the law or cut a deal with the government or whoever is the gatekeepers of the law to do so, because no man is above the law. Now, last, but I'm going to say not only not least, but probably the most important for this time we are in right now in this country. I don't know about the rest of the world. Probably Europe needs to learn this lesson too. Envy. I saved this one for last on purpose. It is very much the antithesis of greed in many respects, as far as how you can, I suppose, process that energy. But right now it is a part of our nation's moral crisis. So I'm going to go a little bit off topic. I'm still talking about envy here, but I'm actually going to frame this one specifically because this is kind of the core of what I'm getting at, and kind of the core of some of my libertarian values versus the liberal values that are out there. So bear with me. This is very important. For liberals out there that are people that consider themselves to be liberals, and anybody in the Occupy Wall Street movement especially. So, I think we have an envy issue, and we don't even realize we have it. Envy is to desire what another person has. You can feed the impulse two ways. You can steal it, or you can work for it. However, if you work for it, you fail. You fail to have a decision to make. Wait, no, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. I spelled it a little funky in here. All right. If you work for it and you fail, you have a decision to make. You can change your strategy, or you can take an easier way out. That's how I meant to say that. I believe that this is our national crisis right now. The argument is us versus them, rich versus poor. The liberals want you to hate the rich and legalize the theft of their work, when the truth is it has been the greedy who did not earn their money that is the problem, who have used their influence to be above the law, or they once ethically got to the top, and then once they got to the top, they cut their deal to hold themselves there without ever having to work for it ever again, because we never had a law on the books that didn't allow that kind of ethical practice, and we kept that ethical practice on the hush-hush. That's how you get back to the problems of the Gilded Age, which came from the favors that were lent out from the banks to handle working with the Civil War, and that's what created the modern 20th century bazillionaire, if you will, the real beginning of the wealth disparity gap, because it was when they began doing it unnaturally. But to get back on point, I ask those of you with this deep-seated envy to the practice. Okay. Didn't think the end of this would be such a tongue twister for me, so forgive me, folks. It's a first, and I'm going to choose not to edit it because, honestly, I'm just having fun, and I'm going to be myself, and it's not a big deal. Anyway, so, in conclusion, I ask those of you with this deep-seated envy for people to practice some sloth and think about the problem so you can best channel your wrath. Because whether you like it or not, human progress has been fueled by greed, but greed can be used for good, and that is something to be proud of. So then, I hope that this has been very enlightening, and I'm going to encourage you all to go out and have a sinful day.